The trick that I use is that I take the fear and look at it as an opportunity to do something that someone else can't do. So instead of saying, "Oh man, I'm about to do some whatever," right? This is terrifying. I was like, "Oh, look, I get to do this."
Hello, beautiful. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm super excited as we dive in with my first special guest interview, Donnie Current. And we're going to be talking about his first experience on a stand up paddleboard, overcoming fears and self doubt, going from marine to entrepreneur, and so much more. I hope you enjoy listening to this podcast interview as much as I enjoyed doing the interviewing. I will catch you on the inside. Let's dive in. So, welcome to today's episode of Paddle Forward Navigating Life's Currents. I'm your host, Anna Connie Walters, and today I am joined by a very special friend, Donnie Current. And he's a retired Marine, a published author, a father to three beautiful girls, an amazing husband. He's an entrepreneur, has his own clothing line, and so much more. Today we're diving into his personal sup experience, which is, if in case you're new to the channel, it's stand-up paddleboarding. We're going to be talking about overcoming fears, managing stress, and so much more. So, Donnie, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Anacani? How are you doing? It's good to see you.
Good, good. So Donnie and I actually go way back, but before we get into that story, I really want him to introduce himself. Just because I can never do that justice, because he's got a really amazing bio.
No, my bio is just like anyone else's. We just happen to have a lot more things that I've done over my life. 26 years in the Marine Corps, I retired. I have four girls, but I have twins. My oldest is 27. My twins are 21. My youngest just
Wow.
survived her freshman year of high school, and she's doing great. My wife is currently in school as well. I'm from Muskogee, Oklahoma, born and raised. I have an identical twin brother who is still serving in the Marine Corps. He's at the Pentagon right now. I can't wait to go get a tour so I can just yell at everybody. It's going to be fun. I currently live in San Antonio, Texas. That's where I retired at. And I'm just making up for lost times with my family and friends and enjoying myself. Um, and it kind of said I did a lot of things. I am an entrepreneur. I have a clothing line. I'll update that later. It's still in the works of getting it off the ground in the States. I did
Mm.
publish a book as well. I think it's making its rounds. And life is good. Life is good. I can't complain. I'm a big proponent of exit the stage while they're still clapping. So I left the Marine Corps on my terms at the right time.
Awesome. So tell me if you remember, because I gave him this question before we recorded to think about. When did you and it doesn't have to be like a physical, it depends how you want to answer that, but our first meeting, how did we first meet?
I think, if my memory recalls me, what happened was me and Gary. So me and Gary had met in SETME,
And
Senior
Gary, you
Enlisted
guys,
PME.
so
Go ahead.
I don't talk about him very often. Gary is my husband, just in case you guys
Yeah.
need pretext.
So me and him had met in this course that we both ended up going to. While we were in the course, he found out that he was going to be coming to Okinawa, as a matter of fact. And he was out there on what's called like the unit deployment program for a while. Well, Okinawa was a day ahead of the States. And it just so happened to be he was training on the same camp that I was on. So me and him broke away to watch the Super Bowl. And while we were in the Super Bowl, we were talking and stuff, and that's when he ended up calling you. But by then, I had already kind of known you because I've been hearing from him forever. So I just hear your voice on the end, and I don't know anything about you aside from our conversation.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once you all got to Okinawa together collectively, it's like we never skipped a beat on knowing each other. It's been a great time.
I feel like our first physical encounter was our fishing trip. I think that was the first time I like in person met you?
Yeah, that's when you all first got to Okinawa though.
We
Yeah,
took a
yeah.
charter boat and went
Yes.
on.
And
I think you brought your nephew or something. He was
yeah, I brought
visiting too.
my nephew was visiting,
Yeah.
and that's when you caught the biggest fish.
I know. Just letting y'all know. I don't just
We call it
pretend
guest
I'm a mermaid.
hospitality. We call it guest hospitality. She did have to
Yeah.
show out though and get the biggest fish. I think quantity wise, our crew got the most
Yeah.
fish anyway, so it was a good time though.
That's actually was my second time deep sea fishing, and two for two. I both times I've caught the biggest catch. And it actually just it is one of the most like memorable moments because Gary was really sick and
Oh yeah.
I didn't know what to do because it was a huge is the biggest fish I've ever caught for sure. And I was struggling, but you had one on the line and you're like trying to get Gary to wake up and you're like, sis, I'm gonna help you. I got one too, and you're like trying and I like, just and by the time
Yeah.
you came over, I was like, no, I don't need no help. I'm already
Yeah.
almost
I was like,
done.
you
Let
need
me
help?
just,
You were already committed. You were already
yeah, I
committed.
was
And
like, no, I'm gonna pull this stupid thing in myself.
all
Um,
the feistiness showed up.
but I remember later when I met the girls that they wanted to then go on a deep sea charter fishing trip because they knew that I went, and they're like, dude, if she can do it, I can do it. And then that really kind of just hit like a chord because I just went because I wanted to get out the house, and I was like, sure, I've done it before. I kind of know what it's like to be on the boat now and fish and stuff. So I was comfortable with it. And so to see that that's what they saw was really like empowering to me, to just keep doing with the stuff that I'm doing. Cause honest, that was on like on a really small scale. And Fat Mermaids I'm trying to make
Mhm.
it more of a brand and a movement. So Fat Mermaids, PHAT, not FAT, is one of my sub brands to Anna Connie Walters' overall brand, and it really is about the slogan. I mean, pretty much speaks for itself. It's strength and balance on water. And we were talking before we chopped on the recording that for me, sup and what I teach, like stand up paddleboarding and what I offer in my lessons goes way beyond what you basically learn in your whether it's a SUP 101 or a SUP yoga lesson. The skills that I teach you, the mindset, how to get over your fears, because a lot of the people that come to me are really scared about going on a stand-up paddleboarding. They've been waiting for a really long time. And I really try to teach through Fat Mermaids that you can learn so much more than just sup, and sup is so much more than just being on the water and paddling. So going into that, I really would love to hear you talk about your very first sup experience, Donnie. And whether or not, because not everybody is scared. You before coming to me with the girls, I think was the first time I took you all
Yep.
on the sup lesson. You already were a scuba diver, and you were
Oh yeah.
very comfortable on the water, or under the water, I should say. But we never really talked about whether or not there was any like fear or just any negative feelings in terms of like what if I can't stand up, which is common of what a lot of people come to me for, or they just don't even approach me for a sup lesson, or they don't even like try it for themselves wherever they are, because those initial, what if I can't stand up? What if, people laugh at me? Like this self-doubt, self-image. And so just kind of whether or not that happened to you or not, you can speak on it. But what you were feeling, because I didn't get that part of that lesson with you.
Well, being that you mentioned that I do a lot of scuba diving, I definitely did, and I can't wait to get back into it. Anything that has to deal with the ocean comes with a dose of fear. Um, you mentioned that when I first came out to do sup with you, I invited my kids with me. Um, Remember when you caught that fish, I'm a girl dad. So I want my girls to be fearless. I want them to never be afraid to try something new. That's why my twins are my scuba diving buddies. My youngest, she just finished the Spartan race with me, like my twins as well. So I think that they need to see strong women doing things. So one, that they know they can do it, but also because they see somebody doing it as well as an example. So yes, there was a fear for sup, not just the stand up portion, but also I took my kids out there. I don't want to be embarrassed by in front of my kids. So so
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of concentration that goes on it. And I think for me, the best part of it is that sup forces you to focus on the things that are important. You there's a comfortability that happens when you nail whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's I'm gonna make it from this wave to this wave without falling, or I'm gonna turn around, or I'm gonna be able to slow down. Whatever it is, you're focused on all of those small things that you teach to get to that moment. And I think that is where that calmness is created.
Mm,
Once you get it, there's like that eureka moment.
yeah, yeah.
And but that's also a confidence building moment as well. So the moment you
Yeah,
get it, you know, one, I can do it, and two, it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be.
yeah,
So and you know, we did a lot of stuff on way many way more occasions. But yeah,
yeah.
even being a scuba diver, there was still that fear of falling, that fear of failing. Um, just fear in general, because one, the ocean can be a scary place for someone that doesn't spend a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time in the ocean, and there's still a healthy fear because of what it entails. So,
Yeah. I mean, and I think like I try to teach people like, one of the most common things people are like, are there any sharks in the water? And I have this funny thing where I feel like, I want you to take your finger and dip it in the ocean. And then they're like, okay. And I was like, and then taste it. And then they're like, okay. And then, is it salty? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, there's sharks in the water. Because I'm like, it's the ocean. Yes, there's sharks in the water. There's a lot of things out there, but it all comes with respect. And I think having the respect when you come into a new situation, whether it's a new culture, like if you're out vacationing, um, and you visit a new place, having that respect for where you're at. When you go into someone's house, like, yeah, they say mi casa es su casa and whatever, even when but you still like, you don't just go in there. If you are a household where you wear your shoes, in Japan, it's very common that you have to take your shoes pretty much everywhere you go inside. And we, out of respect to the culture here, take our shoes off, whether it's something that you do in your own home or not. And the same thing applies, those same basic gestures should apply when you go into like something like the ocean. You are a guest in their home. And as long as you behave and respect their space, then they usually will not bother you. And that goes for most things. I mean, there's things that we can't control, like, stonefish and stuff on the floor. But again, you ended up going into their space. We were just not mindful to look necessarily down. So, it's just dependent on your perspective and your mindset. And again, most of the places that I take people, I take those things into account, making sure that, I'm very knowledgeable about the wildlife in the space. And that's my job when we're paddling. The first thing I say, if I tell you I need you to get down on your knees, I don't need you to ask me why. I just need you to do it. And sometimes it's just because I see something, but I obviously not going to 100% know 100% of the time what it is. It could totally be a dolphin. It could totally be a shark. But, though that's kind of why I'm out there. Those things happen more, I think, in Hawaii than they do here in Okinawa. There are some shark encounters, but they're very rare, and you mostly see them or hear about them from like a boating standpoint because they're out like in the middle of the ocean where they're really prominent. But we don't see very many sharks, reef sharks, and they're pretty harmless. Again, they'll bite you
yeah.
if you put your fingers in there. So don't
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
I've got plenty of video of reef sharks, but I think it also goes to kind of like the way that you educate when you're doing sup. There's a level of confidence that the instructor has to have. And I think that you kind of like make it so that the people that you're teaching at that moment are comfortable. Even if someone's like terrified, there's a level of confidence that you bring to the water that makes people like even try. Because even when we were doing the yoga, when we came
Yeah.
back and we were doing yoga, my kids have never done yoga on land, let alone let alone on a paddleboard in the ocean. But because it was being instructed and you had lined them up and everybody was there, it was just like, she's telling us to do this, let's do it. And so I remember looking at my kids and I'm like, oh yeah, y'all can do anything at this point. Because they understand that, I mean, I think fear can do a lot of things. But fear, the worst thing that fear can do is cripple you.
Yeah.
It can stop you from living. It can stop you from enjoying life in itself. And I love that there's a level of confidence that you bring to how you instruct, that makes you analyze after the lesson's over. Okay, what did I get from this? What did I overcome? What did I gain from this? Because like I wasn't new to the water by any means. But you seen I kept coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are things that I could get doing those sup lessons, that not only helped me in the water, but also helped me at home, helped me at work. It helped
Yeah.
me to kind of like essentially look at who I am and say, okay, where are we going from this and what's the intent? So yeah, yeah, I loved it. That's why I kept coming back. I was the training dummy. I was ready. Let's go.
Yeah, I was like, for those of you who don't recognize him because he's gruffed out as, being post retirement, he
My freedom
actually,
face.
yeah, so when I was going through my master's SUP instructors training, I had to record myself demonstrating several skills on the water, and I needed people to be there to take either the instructional part because they needed to see that my verbal instruction was enough so that the person taking the class was able to either mimic or understand what we were supposed to do. So everything from SUP yoga to a SUP 101 to SUP fitness. He's been on the pool with me doing like SUP. So Surfer Sculpt is basically a HIIT class on the water.
On the
And
water.
and
Yes.
and he's done both. He's done open ocean where we actually did sprint training and I showed him some like at intro to advanced turns around buoys. And then I anchored him in and we did the same kind of stuff. And you'll see him. I have saved some hilarious clips of him doing some really difficult aerobic, exercises on the board. And definitely he's experienced both pool wise and open ocean and how much different they are and why, I usually don't open those classes to people who aren't comfortable or have already taken a SUP 101 lesson because it's like the next step up. So it's an amazing
It is,
class. And
and
I always tell
super
people,
intense.
If I can do it, you could do it." Um,
Well,
Okay, so we talked a little bit about specific moments that you gained from stuff, and you've started to like lead into how those experience with um balancing and kind of focusing on what matters, which is beautifully, beautifully put, and how it affects other areas of life. So for me, I started with SUP yoga. I did it, Gary, we were in Hawaii. Hawaii is a rapid deployment, and see, he was hardly ever there. I ended up spending, out of the 3 birthdays, I think all three by myself. Like he was deployed because it's October, and so they usually have a set deployment schedule.
mhm.
And I was turning 35, and I decided, I usually my zeros and my fives, I try to do something big. And I was like, I'm gonna go do SUP yoga. That sounds badass. Like I already was a yogi, and it was gonna be all aligned on a Friday night, right there next to Waikiki. I was like, then I can go watch the fireworks on my birthday and celebrate it big. And it was really this feeling of, for the first time, understanding what it is to go within, I usually was at that point still kind of struggling with my own self-body image, just my own self-confidence. I had just gotten into the world of sup at that point, and so I was dealing with all the stuff that a lot of people deal with that I train now. Massive still, I had gotten over a large part of my fear of water, but there was still some there. And so, I know that there's sharks in Hawaii. Like you hear about them, people getting like, attacked while they're surfing and stuff. So I was kind of very anxious about the sup lesson, to be like yoga on the water. Like I'm going to be falling off all the time and whatever, whatever. But I was like, I would fall off because I would start to try to do the harder level things because of how comfortable I felt in the water, and really understood what it meant to really focus in instead of worrying about what other people were doing or how far they could bend and touch their toes and how much I couldn't. The balancing on the water completely removed all of those like negative, um disturbing thoughts that people sometimes have. And for me, it's really distracting to have the mirrors in the yoga studios because you then have something to even focus more on all those negative thoughts. You see yourself, you don't like the way you look, you see other people, and you're just surrounded. And with sup yoga, there's no mirrors. It's just you, the ocean, and the board. And
But that's
every
not to interject, but that's what I mean. So, like I said, I'm very experienced in the water. I'm very comfortable in the water. Um, Yoga is one of those things that like there's a lot of people that are afraid of yoga on land just because, like you said, there's mirrors everywhere. There's an instructor up there. You feel like you're around a bunch of people that either look better than you or are more are more experienced in doing this. SUP doesn't allow you to focus on everyone else because focusing on everyone else, you will make mistakes. But I couldn't care if I was stretching more than someone else next to me. I couldn't care if someone else was losing balance. I was like, because me having that distraction could very well put me in the water. So I loved the fact that I could kind of isolate myself from everything going on and focus on those specific things.
yeah,
Because me personally, I feel like the reward is so much greater because you're doing it during sup.
yeah,
Like because there's a level of accomplishment that I just don't feel like you can get if you're just on the ground somewhere.
yeah,
If I pull off a yoga move in the on the beach, the only thing I did was pulled off a yoga move that looked really well because I had the beach behind me. But when you add all of the balancing, the paying attention, the way the water's moving, all of those things matter. And when you accomplish that move, or when you're telling us to do something and I can finish that rep, when we were doing the workout one. Like to me, there's a level of confidence that comes with that is just you can't really reach in a lot of different activities that you do. That's why my kids loved it so much as well. Um,
yeah. I
so
mean,
yeah, I loved it.
that's beautiful. And that's basically what I bring to the sup lesson. And I can't say, I haven't taken everyone's sup lesson, but it's definitely what puts me apart because we spend a lot of time on land going over all the stuff because once I teach you the skill, it really is super easy. Like there's so much of sup that is skill based. It's technique. It's technique, not skill. And but if you go into it with this negative mindset or really scared or whatever, those techniques they don't really matter because you won't have the focus that I need you to have, and you won't have the confidence. And it really does make a difference in the outcome, which is why we spend a majority of the first 20 to 30 minutes on land going over small wins so that as I build you up on land, we always start on our knees or on our butt. And I do that intentionally so that you build like, okay, I was like, I need you to turn, I need you to do a backstroke, and then you do it and you're like, okay, I can do it. She's doing it. Mine looks exactly the same. Win. Okay, I want you to now come onto your knees and start to feel that shift of that balance and see how your body's kind of adapting. And like, okay, she's doing it. I'm doing it too. This is awesome. Like, okay, now we're going to stand. And then, it's like I've built you up to this. And I think that that really is something that you can take into the rest of the world, to the rest of your life. Everything works exactly the same. I had the opportunity, through my husband's unit, of doing a PT group yoga class for them. And I think we ended up with like 238 Marines.
Oh,
And they
nice.
were, surrounding me. I was in the center stage on Futema or was it Futema? Yeah, I think it was Futema in the big gym. Like they literally, MCCS had to go through like 3 or 4 other gyms to gather all of the yoga mats to have enough for this event. Like it was massive. Um,
That's awesome.
and when before I started, they didn't know, but I was 6 months pregnant at the time too. And I was like, look, yoga is like anything else in life. It's you get whatever you put into it. So if you've come into this thinking yoga is dumb, this sucks, I don't want to be here, then that's exactly what you're going to get. This class is going to suck. You're not going to like it, and you're going to not want to still be here. I was like, I'm just asking you to give me 100% and just be open-minded to try everything that I'm asking you to do. Like release any like negative association that you have had about yoga and give me this opportunity. And there's going to be so many more things that are going to happen in your career as a Marine. You're going to have NCOs that you're not going to like. You're going to have units that you're not going to like. You might even have a job you might not like, but it doesn't mean that you can't still give yourself 100%, because at the end of the day, what you show up as is you. Like, you think that how you show up and not doing a good job and not looking good in your uniform is affecting the people around you, and you're sticking it to like, the big man or your NCO or whatever, but really you're just sticking it to yourself. Like those are all things that you're doing to yourself. So by not showing up here at today's class, by not giving me 100%, you're basically just taking that experience away from yourself. And so I still have people that like are on island. They're like, yo, Mrs. Walters, like, I still remember that yoga class. Like I had people blaming me for failing their PT test because they were sore from my class. I was like, I'm sorry to tell you, but whether you had taken my yoga class or not, if you failed, it was not because of my class, honey.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
was
You was
not
gonna fail
prepared.
well before. Well, like that's the
But
thing I think that stuff does though. So you cannot like sometimes too much confidence can be a bad thing. It really can because you can go into a situation overconfident, and it can kind of just ruin the experience. But I think confidence in SUP is only built by doing it. Like I can look at every video, I can do all the yoga on the ground that I want, but the game changer is when I'm on the water because now all of those things that I've learned, I have to apply them. And I can't apply them if I'm not comfortable in what I'm doing.
yeah.
So I think that to me everybody should do a subclass, um, more so because it's something one that when you finish doing it, you feel like you accomplished something,
Yeah.
um, and I think a lot of people just kind of miss those small wins in life feeling like
Yeah. Yeah.
they made an accomplishment or whatever it is. And it's like I tell everybody it's baby steps. I look at sub like scuba, like if you when you do your first dive in scuba diving, you know if it's something that you're willing to do again or if you feel good or comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't. I think sub's the same way. Like the first time I jumped out there, I knew this was something that I would do again. It was just a matter of okay, where do I get boards at? Who's gonna teach? Are the girls
Your
gonna come
mind
back
starts
out?
going. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going to like scuba diving, I still haven't gone. And some of it was just because of the timing. I got pregnant and then I had those two heart conditions, and that really was
Hmm.
what was holding me back. Because I was like, what if I have an air embolism? What if I have, my heart rate goes up and I'm underwater and I have a panic attack because of, my tachycardia and like I drown. Like, no, I don't want to go down that way. And one of my biggest fears is like, what if I like, run out of oxygen? And funny enough, Gary, when he went through his certification program, that is literally what happened in his first dive. Like you guys do it with a buddy, and I
Hmm.
don't know, I never really like paid attention too much to whether he figured out like how it happened, but he got down there and he looked at his little like gauge. I don't know if you guys have to do it like ever so often or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
and realized that he was out. But he didn't he panicked. I'm sure he was scared, but because he paid attention in class, knew exactly what to do, the systems were set in place.
Yep.
He signaled his friend, he gave him his little extra thing, and then they floated back up. Like, and so that was like, well, he survived like literally my worst like nightmare. And so I was like, okay, like it was like really reassuring to me that like, okay, and kind of you just need to pay attention and you're going to be
Yes.
there with other people. You're never going to die by yourself. Like this is going to be okay. So it is something on my to-do list. And I think, self-doubt and fear and are all challenges that everybody faces. I don't care who you talk to, but like I've never been scared in my life. Like that's like saying you've never taken a shit in your life. Like no,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. That's
impossible.
showing straight up lying.
So what strategies, Donnie, do you have on overcoming your own fears, whether they're, and that can be in anything in life, because there's so many things that come up. I'm sure that you might have even faced that fear of the unknown when you retired. Like,
Yes.
it was a huge
100%.
transition from being a military Marine for 26 years to then transitioning as a civilian.
I think the trick that I use is that I take the fear and look at it as an opportunity to do something that someone else can't do. So instead of saying, "Oh man, I'm about to do sub whatever," right? This is terrifying. I was like, "Oh look, I get to do this. So if I get to do this, why not maximize the opportunity and take as much from it as I can?" That's the same reason I climbed Mount Fuji, and the same reason I did scuba, and the same reason I came back for SUP. There are so many people in the world that do not get an opportunity to do those types of things, whether it be proximity, whether it be they don't know anyone that can teach them, whether it be financial issues. So for me, I take that fear and I turn it into a positive thing. And that's what I do with my kids. I tell them, look, you get to do this. So if we get to do this, let's do it the right way. And I think that's how you get someone to pay attention when they shouldn't, when they need to be paying attention. It's funny you tell that story about Gary with scuba. Every diver has had a scary moment, and that's when they realize that paying attention is what saves them,
Yeah.
because everything from the way you check your gear prior to getting into the water, the same thing you do with the equipment. You remember when we were pumping up the boards on the on the
On the
land
land,
and
yeah.
doing the check about the anchor and making sure we had all the straps and all of those things. Those safety checks are there for a reason. In Gary's case with the scuba, it was a share air. So it's
Mm.
it's literally what you do when you run out of air. You have to share air with someone, and you practice this when you're going through the class. So I think that if you change the narrative of being afraid of something, um, it makes it easier to transition. Even during retirement, it was like, I get to retire, because there's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
Um, so now, since I get to retire, how can I do this and do it the way that I want to do it, and make sure that I'm as prepared as possible for it? Um, so yeah, I think every individual has the opportunity to change the way they think about something. Um, but sometimes you just don't know, and you don't have
Mm.
people telling you to change it. So, I mean, that's how I get through everything.
So, like, leading into that, do you have any like actual practical tips that like the listeners who might be struggling with either self-doubt or fear can like actually apply to either a specific situation or like something that they might be going through right now?
The first thing I would ask somebody to say, ask the question is, am I the first person to ever go through this?
Mm, yeah.
Because nine times out of nine times, you're not. And if that's the case, that means there is somebody you can reach out to get some type of information, to
Mm.
get some type of assistance. Because sometimes when you're afraid, whatever, you just need help. Like, you just might
That's
need
true.
help. You might need someone to coach you through what you're going through. My transition into retirement, luckily for me, I know people around the world that have already retired. So any questions that I had, any fears about TRICARE or medical or dental or claims or taxes, you know, I call people that I know have been through the same thing, and that's where my advice comes from. So that's what I tell everybody. If there's a fear, ask yourself that question first. Am I the first person to have to deal with this? And if you're not, then start figuring out who you can reach out to that is willing to help you, because there's still some good people in the world. I get calls all the time, and I set aside my time to say, "Hey, what do you need help with? What is going on?"
I was just gonna say that. I said, I think also looking at it, like once you go through it, you then become the person that can help other people go through. Like everybody has to go, like there's always going to be the first, like
Yep.
somebody who had to go through it first, and you're like, well, I'm not going to be the first person to retire, I'm not going to be the first person in the world to like go stand up paddleboarding, but you are in your circle, or you can be. And that's what you have to consider, is that you're not doing stuff for the world. Most likely we're not Gandhi, we're not trying to do world changes, but we are trying to change our own world, and the people that are around you see that you, in your own world, you may have been the first person to do some of this stuff, and then you become basically a leader or a supporter in that aspect.
It's been fun.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is managing stress is super crucial, especially in today's world. You understand it completely from, your career of choice, which is in the United States Marine. It's such a high stress level job. For me, I come from a nursing background. They dealt with massive stress during COVID, but that's on top of their normal everyday stress, because you have people's lives in your hand. And so incorporating mindfulness practices, and so because it's not just about yoga, I mean, it could be meditation, walking meditation, where you're literally just walking in nature. So to me, it's more of a mindfulness. I used to just say it was all come down to yoga, but I've learned, since I started my yoga journey, like in 2012, for those of you who don't know, my background story is that I suffered from adrenal fatigue. I thought I was really great at stress management, just basically based on the fact of who I am personally, like my personality. I'm very like melatonin. I'm really relaxed usually. I mean, it takes a lot to work me up. Um, but it was just a mask that I was wearing. Internally, I was awful at managing stress, and it manifested into two heart conditions that I developed when I was 25. And I suffered for pretty much until I was in my almost, late 30s, of dealing with those heart conditions, never really understanding what I was doing wrong. There was no real indication medically why I was having it. I mean, I had $1 million workups. They could never find anything wrong with me. And it ended up just being this small, what seemed very insignificant, stress management. And so, I made lifestyle changes to get pregnant at 40, and it really just changed everything, because post delivery, I ended up noticing that my blood pressure was going down. I was needing less and less of my medication, and I am actually going to be celebrating my third year without medication, which is something that the doctors told me that I would never do. So thank you very much. And so stress management is now something that I've become a huge advocate for. And I've really stepped away from my medical career. I was very, I guess, sad and it sucked coming from, the mainland into Okinawa right during the peak of COVID, really when it started and struggling to get back into a medical job. Okinawa is very unique. It's a very small island. Job opportunities were scarce to begin with. It's super competitive, and you're in another country, meaning that sometimes you don't have the right certifications, and those right certifications are what keeps you from being employable. And so that's the boat that I was in. And so I really had to take that step back and be like, okay, what else can I do? And I really stepped into this yoga instructor's journey, and it really propelled me to really start to put these dots together of like where I was missing, the piece to the puzzle in my own journey with stress management. And it's paid off completely that first year of being off of cardiac medications, because they all come with severe side effects, really opened me up to the idea of like, let's focus on the people before they get to that medical standpoint where they have no other option but to get on medication. And I feel like so much of what we deal with in society as a medical problems, diabetes, anxiety, heart
High
conditions,
blood
all these
pressure.
things are all stress related. It's how we manage our stress. And, for me, self-care is a huge thing with men and women. We do not take that priority in our own lives. We will do everything else to protect our families and give them the best, but we lack to take 20 minutes to ourselves. And that literally is all you need. You can do deep breathing exercises, takes you 5 minutes, and that's enough. That is enough to really like desensitize your central nervous system, really oxygenate your blood flow. It reduces your stress, it reduces your anxiety. And we just don't talk about it enough. We're talking about all these other things. We're on Twitter and dancing and doing all this like stuff, but you're not really seeing the stuff that actually is life changing and life saving, in my opinion. And so, I just wanted to touch base with you on that perspective. We might have military people watching this podcast, and whether you want to take it from that perspective or just in life perspective, because you've lived a full life of a lot of experiences, how you see stress and how you manage it, or any tips that you might have about what you've learned over the course of your life.
So the first I'll say is that the Marine Corps is a very high stress, high reward type career field. It is. If you pop positive for competency and you keep on gunning, you will get rewarded. So you learn to function at a high level of stress. I think the issue that people run into, especially when they retire or as they start climbing the ranks and they decide to have a family or to go to a different location that they've never been, is as the stress piles up, they don't realize that you have to have a way to manage that stress. Too often, people try to manage stress through their vices that aren't good for them, whether that be alcohol or whatever. And that's what I try to tell people is that you have to find something that kind of adds to your peace and happiness. Everybody that knows me knows that since I retired, I have not stopped living. I haven't skipped a beat. And I'm not going to because sometimes things that I do, those are the things that help me reduce my stress. And I think that's the problem. A lot of people have the notion that when they get out the Marine Corps, and I'm speaking for the Marine Corps because that's what I know and love. Um, I've heard a lot of people say, "Yeah, I really miss the camaraderie I had in the Marine Corps." And my answer is always, "Why do you miss it? You should still have it. Like, why did you lose it just because you decided to hang the uniform up?" I'm still in touch with almost everybody
Yeah.
that I serve with. Like, and we have chat groups, but we have like meetups. We do things to do that. And I think people don't realize that you have to find a way. One, you have to find out what triggers your stress, and you
Yeah.
have to find what your outlet is going to be. And then sometimes you just need a harsh reality of you need to stop doing this, and this. And that's where friends and family come into play. You need someone that's going to be brutally honest with you to say, this is adding to your stress, not taking away from it.
Yeah.
Or you need whatever it is, whether it be a trip away to go camping, a hobby. There are so many hobbies out there that are just stress free. Fishing is one of them.
To
Yeah,
some
no.
people.
But I think that's the biggest thing. One, identifying that stress is there, and two, asking yourself the honest question of, is what I'm doing in my life adding or subtracting to my stress?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, a lot of people realize like the United States is a cesspool of everybody, just like the military is. But you can be associated with people that add to your stress. Uh, and well, I tell people, don't be afraid to let go of those stressors, because at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to let people go. One of my greatest quotes is, some people never grow up; they just have birthdays. When you grow at a different pace from the rest of the people that you know, you have to take a step back and say, okay, is this best for me, and is this adding to me,
Yeah.
or is it subtracting from my happiness, my stress, whatever? Um, but that's really it. Just
Those, I mean, that's awesome tips. I mean, some of what I took away, reminded me of that saying that you are the accumulation of the five people that you spent the most time with. And so if there's something
mm,
about yourself or your situation that you don't like, some people naturally think like, okay, let me look at the stuff like in my own life. You really should start looking at the people that you're surrounding yourself with and those top five people, and that you may need to switch out some people um
yep.
in order to make the changes. And so like I have a brain coach now, and Jim Quick, one of his top lines is, when you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So if
Mm,
you're, whatever it is, you're broke or you're not happy in your career, or, I hate my life, I hate my career, I hate the relationship that I'm in, I don't like my friend circle or whatever, I'm a slow reader, I'm not fearless, it can go something basic where it's just, self-identifying, I'm not smart
mm,
enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not, fast enough. Well, again, if you continue to fight for them by constantly just telling people what you are not, then you get to keep that. Like those things aren't going to change. It starts by what you start to say with yourself. It's all a mindset shift. And sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it. And there's plenty of times where I'm out there putting myself in situations where I'm like, this is crazy. What are you doing? But it's like, I'm just gonna like people are like, dude, I had no idea that you were like, internally having an anxiety attack. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I was faking it. That was called faking it till you make it. I mean, that was you saw it in real life. Um, and that, like that, one of my favorite movies is that movie with Will Smith where um it's him and his son, and they're like in another
in the
world, and he's the
bathroom. Oh,
commander,
okay.
and his son has to like travel through Earth because they've landed in Earth, and Earth is like transformed into like this killing, everything wants to
Yep.
kill you
Me trying to
here
link
kind of
up with
thing.
him. Yep.
Yeah. And he talks to him about like ghosting is like the main thing, and how did he overcome fear, because basically he had to remove fear from his mindset in order to be invisible to these monsters that these aliens like let loose to kill humans. And he's like, fear is this illusion that we have. And he's like, danger is very real, but the fear of danger is the illusion. We are scared of all these things that may or may not happen. And we allow that fear to basically keep us hostage in time and essentially not allow us to experience life. And I said this in my previous episode. I just decided, I consciously made the decision that I no longer wanted fear to be the driver to my car. And I was going to be the one to take him out, put him in the back seat, because I know that it's always going to be there, but he doesn't have to be the leader. He doesn't have to be the person with the paddling, and navigating my life.
Facts, facts.
And
Real quick, let me real quick,
go
because I want to say, 'cause you're talking
ahead.
about when you were talking about the way that fear affects people. Remember earlier I was saying that fear can cripple you, right?
Yeah,
Um, what I try to make people understand is your circle can cripple you.
yeah,
If you feel like you can't, that I tell people, do an assessment of the people that you spend your time with. You said the 5 people you hang around with create that narrative. Well, the best quote I heard someone say one time is that people either infect you or they affect you.
yeah,
And if
it's
you
true.
do a real assessment of the people that you are around, you'll be able to answer that question. Are they affecting me in a positive manner to be successful, to accomplish my goals, to overcome my fears? Are they infecting me and let me stay in this hole that I'm stuck in, keeping me from living a life that most people only dream of?
That's
Um,
true.
I tell people all the time, I said, if I was to die right now, nobody in the world would say I didn't live. I'm a firm believer in die with memories, not regrets. But you can have people in your circle that you call family, friends, brother, sister, whatever, that are stomping on those opportunities for you. And that's when you have to ask yourself, okay, is this how I want to? Do I want to live like I'm always afraid of something? Or
Yeah.
do I want to, step out on that ledge and accomplish it? Because for me, I think to take it back to SUP, like I would have never thought that I would do something like that.
Really?
Just because no, it's just because it's like I went surfing one time. This is way back in the day. And I remember when I caught the wave and I stood up and I couldn't control the board, I was like, I will never be on one of these ever again in my life. Because I didn't like that I couldn't control what I was doing, and I like to be in control of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So to me, Sup was like, I'm about to get on this board again. Oh man, let's see. But as I did it, I realized there's a level of confidence gained by staying on it and continuing to do it. So yeah, that's all.
Um, I am going through this mastermind of like scaling to 1 million in business. And
Mhm.
one of the things that they talk about is that as you continue to scale, which is something that you mentioned like in the beginning about the camaraderie, is that
Mhm.
you start to outgrow people. As you grow in your business, you're going to, it's just the way, it's the give and take. You start to outgrow people. And sometimes you
Yep.
just don't acknowledge it. And so you keep them, and then they tend to hold you back in your business. And so, he's like, you have, but he's like, everything takes work, and you have to find that work-life balance, and not lose yourself so much in work trying to scale that you lose, the people and the things in life that actually matter, and your
Mhm.
values and your cores. You have to make sure that those are what are guiding you in your business and how you scale. Um, because then when you do scale, you might not be happy with the result of your business. And so he had us do this exercise where, like, I want you to write your obituary, and then I want you to think, if you had to die today, if you die today, who would step up to be your pallbearer? And he's like, you'd be surprised how many people don't have they don't have enough people that they have on their list of friends that would be the person to carry their weight at the, um at the end stage when we're leaving the world. And it really just kind of put this different perspective for me on and it was a good thing for me because I definitely felt like I had enough people, but it definitely made me realize like I haven't talked to this person in a while. And then, and then it was this invitation to reconnect. And,
Yeah.
I know these people every time whether it's, a year, 2 weeks,
Hmm.
or, 20 years, when we see each other, it's like we never,
Never
were
skip the beat.
separated. So it was nice to have that context, but it was like, you see that sign, forever is today. It's one of my favorite sayings, because that is how I live life. That is what Fat Mermaids is about. It's that, forever. We cannot continue to just be like, yeah, I'm going to take that trip in like 5 years, or I'm going to buy myself that new outfit when I lose weight. Everything is a futuristic thing, and how we act today affects our future. And I don't want to look back on my future and see all the things that I didn't do because I was
Mhm.
too scared to do them now, because it's never going to be a right time. And you just have to just get out there, get
You got
on
to
that
do it.
board and paddle through your life. Um, and know that if your compass and your spirit, if your compass and your spirit are good, then you can navigate anything in life. And
Yep.
that's really kind of what I go through. So, Donnie, this has been an amazing conversation, and
It's been fun. I've had
that
a
we
blast.
can talk forever. But I know that you also wrote a book called Go With God, but make him walk
Make them
point. And
walk
I
point.
actually have a copy. I believe it's autographed too, because we were at your book release.
Of course it is.
But just tell us really quick, what inspired you to write it, and what can readers expect when they buy the book?
Okay, so the title, to some, is misleading. The title is "Go with God, but make him walk point." The reason that's the title of the book is so when I deployed to Iraq, a lot of years ago, I actually read that inscribed on a wall, and it was the first time I had to think about other people's religious beliefs aside from mine at that time. At that time, I was just devout Christian. I grew up Baptist from Muskogee, Oklahoma. But when I read that quote, it made me ask, okay, what is someone else's point? What is their guide? Because it says go with God, but make him walk point. The point man in a fire team is the person that's up front. They identify hazards, ambushes, terrain, things like that. So whoever that first person is, that point man, that's to me who you put your faith in, who you're trusting to make the right decisions that affect you. Um, so for me, that's what I said. I said I'm gonna write a book one day, and that's going to be the title of it. What up, nephew?
Y'all know this is a family show, and my son is here. Keep going.
So, so the book itself is. He's like, what up? So the book itself is a series of quotes that I have heard throughout my career, and they helped mold me into the leader that I was throughout my Marine Corps history and everything that I did, all the duty stations, all the ranks, deployments, etc. So I think the thing that makes my book different is so there's a quote. I tell you how I interpret that quote because me and you can hear two different things and we just read them differently. And if we're reading it differently, that's okay because we were raised differently. We might have different life experiences. But what it does on the next page, it says your thoughts. You can take and write down how you interpret that quote. And then, it may stay the same, it may change over time, but it allows you to interact with the book and hopefully get a lesson from it. There's over 50 quotes in the book. Some you'll identify from, some you'll identify with, some you may not. But either way, it's still you'll get something from this book. I guarantee it. And for me, it was one of those bucket list items. I said I was going to do it, and I don't believe in making false promises. So I wrote my book, and you know, life is life. Now I just got probably about 50 more quotes I can probably add to a sequel, but that's all.
But I screen shared so you guys could see. You guys can get that on Amazon, and just type in the title, Go With God, but make him walk point. I make sure that I will have a link in the show notes so that you can have a direct link. Um, And then, as we wrap up, I just, I brought Donnie on because there was just a lot of thoughts in like, how can I better serve, my fat mermaid community and, with SUP. And there were so many things that I wanted to share, but I realized that not everybody has the opportunity to be in Okinawa and take a SUP lesson with me. So it inspired me to basically spend some time and create a online SUP 101 course. It's called Fearless SUP. And it's basically an accumulation of all of the things that we've talked about here. It goes very heavily into mindset. I do go into a very detailed SUP 101 lesson to basically take you from a complete beginner all the way to an end. And it's meant as an accompany. So like you might have a friend who knows how to SUP and they'll take you out for your first SUP lesson, but they're not instructors. They can't instruct you from that level. And so this isn't a companion to that lesson so that you can be even more prepared, so that I can be in your head and you can take a little piece of me onto that water and be prepared. You already know what to expect. You kind of already know where to put your feet, how to hold your paddle, how to start, how to get on and off your board. And it's never going to replace a true in-person SUP 101 lesson, but I know that not everybody teaches SUP like me. And I've seen people that literally they just kind of are more like board rentals. They take you out and then they're like, okay, I'll be over here if you need help, have fun, and we'll meet back here in like an hour. And that's not really a SUP lesson. But that's the extent that some people just have. And so I was like, how can I share what I have to offer with the rest of the world without physically being there? And so this was my gift really to the world. And so I'm super excited. It's in the works. You can actually go follow the show notes for getting on the wait list. People who are on the wait list will actually get exclusive. Look into the lesson or the course once it's finalized. It will come with a community. And for those who sign up during the waitlist period, when I first launch it, you'll get exclusive ability to enroll before it's released to the public. Those people will actually get VIP access where we will have monthly group coaching calls with me. I'll be spending an hour with you a month for 6 months just to kind of give you the forum. Ask me any questions that you have about SUP, your struggles, and even celebrating your wins, because I'm all about, hyping and celebrating, because you deserve to celebrate even if it's just small wins. And so I'm excited for that. And so as we wrap up, Donnie, do you have any thoughts or lasting words for the audience that you want to just kind of gift to them with all your awesomeness?
The only thing I will tell you is this. I'm a country boy from a very small town. I have been fortunate to do all the things that I've done in life. A lot of those opportunities given to me, some people never have. Like this option is, hey, you may not be close to an ocean or someone that can instruct you to do it in that same manner, but when you said to have a little piece of me when you go out on the water, every time I go on the water, if I jump on a sup, I'm thinking about the lessons you gave me. Don't be afraid to live. Conquer your fears, overcome those doubts. And if that means changing your circle, change it. But anybody ever heard the term life is short? Life is long, and it's
Yeah.
longer if you have regrets. So step out on a limb, do something that makes you uncomfortable. Try to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where your greatest memories come from and your greatest achievements. Um, all love all the time. Uh, anybody need to reach me, reach out to Anna Connie. She's got my contact info.
And then just real quick before we go, did you want to just quickly let people know a little bit about your clothing line, how that works, and whether or not people can access
Yeah.
it?
Well, so for the military people, Marine Corps, they know we had the Savage 7 Hazel Lakes and Spice Nines clothing line. The only holdup we have right now is being that we're back stateside now. We are initially we're doing it all overseas. Now that we're stateside, it's trying to find a vendor that can one allow us to keep prices affordable, but also keep the quality of the product, what made it so great in the first place. As we figure it out and we keep dealing with people that can help us out, when we finally get to launch date, we'll let everyone know. It's still trademarked, so I'm not worried about someone stealing it. We know what it is, and we hope to get it off the ground the way it's supposed to be in the near future.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Donnie, for taking the time.
Of
I know
course.
you're back in the States, for sharing your insights and experiences with, me and the audience today. It was an amazing pleasure to have you. We haven't talked since you left Island, so this has been awesome. I'm sure Gary would have loved to be here to like even listen in, but he's got to make the money. Um, to our listeners, thank you so much for sticking around. I know this was one of my longer podcasts, but another amazing episode of Paddle Forward, Navigating Life's Currents. Remember that you have the power to steer your own course. And I want you to continue to stay spat, stay fabulous, stay beautiful, and keep paddling forward. I will catch you in the next episode.
Are you on the path to a more vibrant and fulfilling life? Then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You have the power to transform your life. Let's start that journey now. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and remember, your journey to a happier, healthier you starts right here. See you in the next video.